Let's see. The single biggest problem Ashes of Creation faces right after we watched the Narc video about him using the R word. This is gonna be the biggest problem now. Age of Wushu, there was an alignment system that showed you as evil or good, and there were benefits, consequences, both. Let's see.
Piss a lot of people off. I
Hell
can just
yeah,
imagine
let's
the
go.
comment section now. Heck, the thumbnail probably has some of you already furiously
Yeah,
typing on
Alex
your
Rosa.
keyboard about how I'm trying to kill another MMO. But you're wrong.
No.
Quite the opposite.
No. You are trying to get a lot of views. That's why the single biggest problem is the very appealing topic. Because there's no single biggest problem. There's many big problems usually.
Save Ashes of Creation. So hear me out before you leave a comment, because you'll likely realize I'm on your side. I just want Ashes to succeed. But if Ashes of Creation goes through with its current design without changing anything, its chart is going to look no different than any other dying MMO today.
First of all, what demographic, what numbers of players is Steve even trying to reach? I feel like Steve said like he wants like about 100,000 players, not much more than that. I think that's what he mentioned. I don't think he wants like too massive of an MRPG. He just wants a well-populated one. I'm not saying 100,000 is anywhere near enough. I would love it to have 10 million players, obviously, but I think he would be okay with much less. And all these like after launch bleed almost all of its player base MMO whatever like charts. Even New World, as bad as it is and was with all the bugs and all the problems and no end game, had more than what Steve even wishes to acquire, to have in his world. So
say that lightly. I know
don't
how much
know if
copium
that's
some
much
of
of
us
a
are
problem.
sucking in, hoping that Ashes of Creation will be the next MMO to rekindle our love for the genre. Trust me, I'm sucking in more of this stuff than Narc, and he's literally made of it at this point. But there is a massive problem most of you are ignoring, and that problem is you don't like Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation in its currently planned design is not made for you. If you are a WoW player, an ESO player, a Final Fantasy XIV player, a Guild Wars 2 player, chances are you're gonna hate AOC once you get past the first few days. Heck, I even asked you guys if you would like a game like AOC, and you said no. I just asked in a way where you didn't know I was asking about AOC. I posed the question like this: how would you feel about an open world MMO with always on PvP that you could never turn off? 82% of you that had an opinion one way or the other said, no way, not for me.
But there's didn't they talk about the PvP, and it's like once you if you start doing too much PvP, you actually start doing less damage and you have risk of like losing gear as well as like other problems with being like full on PvP and like harassing players online. Didn't they already say there was a problem with that? Now the thing is with that is, first of all, how hard is it to level up? So what I mean by that is, can you make multiple characters? Can your PvP status be decreased while you're offline? I would honestly wish that you can't. If you fucked up in like a lot, like to the point where like you're like blood red flagged for PvP, you cannot get rid of it. And honestly, any PvP really, you cannot get rid of your bad status while offline. You can only do it online, and that would prevent people from just making multiple characters to harass people on and then just shuffling through them while their PvP is being messed up. Now what you can do theoretically is when you go to sleep, log out in a super safe spot, whatever that would be, for your PvP stuff to go down. I would wish for there to be something like you need to do certain things, like good deeds, for the PvP stats to go down, and not to have it time related. So you would really think twice about just like openly PvPing somebody for no reason. But yeah, there has to be repercussions. You can't just like, oh well, I'll just wait it out and I won't be a wanted criminal anymore. That's not really how it works, you know. So even especially in real life, yeah.
And I would wager that the 18% that voted that you would want this, a substantial portion of you have never played an MMO with the AOC's proposed PvP system. And before you say, hey, I have played Lineage 2 or some other MMO where you can kill anyone, anytime with a flagging system that turns people purple and red based on how everything transpires, I am well aware a handful of you love this type of PvP.
It doesn't bother him if players grief him while he PvEs. See, no one cares. I think most people do care, but yeah.
You are the rule 34 of PvP. You are an outlier. Yes, you like it. The problem is almost nobody else does. Ashes of Creation's PvP is a one-to-one replica of the PvP system from Lineage 2. I have played it. I have lived it. I have thousands of hours in that system. It was my first MMO, and I degened it like the disgusting goblin of an MMO fiend that I am. What this means is I know every single problem with this system and how detrimental it's going to be to an MMO that tries to implement it in the modern day.
Open PvP is overall dog shit. It has to be the repercussions for doing open world PvP, like actually just griefing, attacking players nonchalantly and stuff like that. You need to be super heavily punished. 100%. Consider it as murder. That's what you're doing. You are murdering characters. So what if you're not actually murdering? Obviously, like one murder is like pretty much like you can get a life sentence. In game, obviously you're not going to get a life sentence, but multiple murders, you should get like super high repercussions that would really make it hard for you to play the game. Now, this is probably not going to prevent people from making multiple characters. One player is going to be just the harasser and the other one would be the legit player. Yeah, I can see that happening. How many people would actually do that? You know.
Day. Now, I don't expect you to just take my word for it. So in this video, I'm going to go over those problems and the inevitable effect it will have on the game's performance over time. I will also go over some proposed solutions and ask for you to propose solutions in the comments as well. My goal in this video is not to stifle interest in AOC, quite the opposite. I saw the Archer playtest and I am in love with the world they have created. I want to get lost in that world. I want Ashes of Creation to do well, but I am also painfully aware of exactly why it won't if it doesn't address the problems I'm going to bring to light in the video today. The first and most obvious problem is that Ashes of Creation is an always-on open world PvP game, and 90% of MMO players flat out won't enjoy that. That means right from the beginning, almost everyone that tries this game is sure to not like it. But you know what they will like? Raid Shadow Legends, who's also the sponsor of today's video. With hundreds of artifacts and over 600 champions plus with unique skills, you can build your team and develop your champions any way you want. One of my favorite champions is the Sky Touch Shaman. She is a curious champion with a unique healing passive and a great defense against debuffs. She hurts herself to help her team, so it will take careful planning to keep her in the fight. Then there's Cardial. He isn't the perfect champion for every situation, but where he's good, he's really good. He's a team attack champion who can increase the entire team's crit rate and crit damage at the same time. And of course, you can't forget Glazea Soul Guide, who's all about freezing her enemies and protecting her allies.
Somebody I never knew.
Enemies from increasing cooldowns on her allies and freeze anyone who tries. Right now, Raid's running.
Wow, look how strong this champion is. At level 60, it can one-shot level 36s. Wow, so strong.
Free promotion Halloween event. All you need is your Raid player ID. Download Raid with my link in the description, then head to trickortreat.plarium.com. Don't worry, I linked that in the description as well. From there, enter your details, spin the wheel, and get a prize, including $1,000 Amazon gift cards and some of the best epic and legendary Halloween champions. A special event.
It's pretty cool that they're offering like real life loot for an event. I'd say that's pretty cool.
Ends November 5th, so be fast. You can also use the DK Rises promo code for a bunch of free items to instantly level any of your strongest champions to level 50 5-star Ascension. Promo code available for both new and existing players until October 25th. If you haven't started playing Raid yet, click my link in the description or scan my QR code on screen and you'll get a unique bonus worth $30. We're talking a free epic champion, Rector Drath, 200,000 silver, an energy refill, an XP boost, and 1 ancient shard so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get in the game. All this treasure will be waiting for you here. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to our discussion about Ashes of Creation.
Let's go.
After the very brief stint of starting up and enjoying a few fun levels in the low level areas in the new world, the PvP will kick in. The griefing will kick in. It's been proven time and time again that MMOs that focus solely on PvP players never achieve more than a niche status in the MMO genre. The best they can hope to do is to carve out a tiny corner of a tiny market for themselves and their players. I think AOC can satisfy both groups. I really do. I think it can satisfy the PvP sweatlords who are happiest when others are rage quitting the game because of them. I think it can also satisfy the PvE players who just want to get lost in a beautiful MMO and come together to take down epic raid bosses, dungeons, and occasionally group up for PvP content when they want to. And I'll go ahead and tell you how I think AOC can achieve this before the video's over. But here's the rub, the inescapable fact that if you're a PvE main in the MMO of your choice, you won't like Ashes of Creation. You won't like when you're trying to level with your friends and a group of sweaty players comes and bullies you out of your spot. Oh, did the community work hard to upgrade a node and unlock a new dungeon? That's nice, but I've seen how that plays out. You won't be allowed inside that nice new dungeon. Sorry, that's gonna be locked down by one of two groups of players. If you're lucky, it's gonna be locked down by the sweatiest, most degenerate PvP guild on the server. If you go inside, they'll grief you until you leave. Griefing is gonna be something that comes up a lot in this video because all the poor, inexperienced players that have never played in this flagging system are under the assumption that they are going to be protected by this flagging system. And this could not be more wrong. You will not be protected by this flagging system. This flagging system is easily abused and circumvented in its current design, and this is my primary reason for making
its current
this video.
design. Yes,
Steven, if you are listening, you cannot recycle this flagging system from a game from 2003 without changing it substantially or adding more systems to protect the players. You must improve upon it to protect the players that aren't griefers, because as you know, griefers not only survive under the system, but they thrive under the system. And I know I'm not going to say anything that Steven isn't aware of. He played this game as well. He played Lineage 2, but he also hasn't addressed these problems publicly. So either he's hoping it's just going to work out, or he's thinking the rest of the game will be good enough to retain players in spite of these glaring flaws. And I'm warning you all now, it won't. It can't be. These flaws cause way too many quit moments daily for most of the players in the game. Now I'm going to explain why, and I'm also going to ask you, the viewer, to help come up with a solution.
I agree. And the problem is, like, when you get like big groups that do it, like, even if it's like, oh well, if it's one person, it's not really a problem, right? But it's like, how often take the biggest goddamn game of for its time, especially back then. World of Warcraft Classic had open world PvP. Okay. We saw people griefing people from going into raids and all that stuff. Yes, that did happen. Would that happen though with a flagging system in WoW Classic? Especially when you have like BGs and stuff and better way to farm honor. Also, like, I get it that like griefers do that for the sake of griefing. They don't care if you punch them with like, well, you're not getting any more honor for your kills and all that stuff. You're worth more. I kind of like the assassin mechanic they had in BFA. I don't know why. I don't even know if it's still in the game. No one does war mode anymore. It's like one and done kind of thing. But I did like the assassin mechanic in BFA. Somebody who killed 10 of the enemy faction. He does have more power and stuff, but he's worth more. Like, if you kill him, you get conquest, you get honor points, stuff like that. And he's also marked on the map, so there are cool stuff that you can do with it. But the biggest thing is, how do you prevent people from griefing? And I think massive damage nerfs and massive damage, like that they can take a lot more damage, I think that's already a good one. But I feel like that should also be a problem that can solve itself. So for example, if you have a massive group of griefers, you would hope that the community would also make a group of anti-griefers, right? This is not necessarily going to happen, but this would be the best thing the community can do. A group of anti-griefers that would go and kill these griefers. Now the thing is, killing these griefers would probably net you loot, because when you kill them, they will drop items. And what's it called? And they would be a lot weaker anyway. So it's like, if you guys are the same level, like the non-griefer group, as long as it's like similar numbers, is easily gonna win, right? These guys are doing 50% less damage and take 50% more damage, or 100% more damage, right? It's like, it's not even a fair fight. Now, but that's a community thing, and I think that's kind of what Ashes, he's trying to make Ashes to be. Obviously, I'm not saying he won't intervene if needed, but I feel like his heart is in the right place, let's say like that. But I don't know if there would actually be people bothering with anti-griefers. You know, a guild that is like straight up for anti-griefers. It's hard to say. But yeah. I'm sure, like, and again, just because full PvP all the time, maybe there will be safe zones, you know, like, especially like for newer players. Or there was this game I used to play, and I guess I mentioned this game every like once out of 20 videos or 30 videos. T4C, and what they had in the system is in PvP you couldn't attack players that are like 10 levels below or above you. So there was like a certain gap where it's like you couldn't breach it. So technically you would be safe from all these griefers. If they're max levelers coming to kill low levelers, there would be you won't be able to, right? So maybe a system like that can be also in place, right? Like a lot of protection systems anti-griefing.
If you think of a way to improve upon this system to protect normal players from griefers, leave it in the comments below. So back to the scenario we began to describe. If your group is in a dungeon and you're merrily grinding along, the guild that has this dungeon locked down will show up and flag on you. They will not go red on you because generally the punishment for going red is good enough that it prevents players from doing so excessively. I say generally because it's not always effective, but we'll touch more on that later. However, they don't need to go red. They'll go purple.
Why?
Healer is throwing out big heals, trying to keep the mobs in the dungeon from killing the tank, because if their tank dies, the whole group wipes, and in the process, the healer is burning through their mana supply. The end is inevitable. You don't win this exchange as the group that's mid-pole against a sweaty PvP guild. The PvE group trying to enjoy the dungeon has two options, and both result in them losing. They would likely lose the fight even if they weren't already engaged with NPC enemies, because it's likely the top PvP guild locking down the dungeon. They are sweatier. They don't log out of the game. They are
Dungeons open dungeons? Is that what's going on here? They're not instance dungeons?
generally the group of players involved in all of the seediest forms of play, meaning they RMT, they bot, they do anything it takes to be the #1 guild so that they can survive and dominate in this always on PvP game. You, the normal player trying to enjoy the dungeon after work, you don't stand a chance in an even fight, but that's not relevant because they're not going to attack while you aren't fighting NPCs. They're gonna wait until your tank is mid-pole and picking away at your team's health until NPCs kill you for them. If you fight back, you will go purple, and that is their biggest hope.
But don't they get flagged as soon as they attack you? Let me see this again.
Fighting NPCs, they're gonna wait until your tank is mid-pole and picking away at your team's health until NPCs kill you for them. If you
It doesn't matter though, you get flagged when you attack, not when you kill, right? Or is that only purple and they only get red if they kill?
you fight back, you will go purple, and that is their biggest hope. Because if you go purple, they can dispatch.
I do not agree with you going purple for self-defense. I do not agree with that one. That's for sure.
Do all the quicker as they will unload on your team, which will be caught fighting them and the mobs that the tank pulled at the same time. If you're lucky, you won't be mid-pole when the other team rolls up. At this point, you'll either both stand there until one gets bored and leave, or you'll fight for the spot. It becomes not a battle of wills, but a battle of time. Who is willing to spend their night getting nothing done? Who has more time to waste in the game? And guess what? It's not you, it's them. They are the top guild that is holding this dungeon down because they don't have a life outside of this game.
Yeah, I don't like the. I agree. I do not like open dungeons. If there are a few open dungeons, that's fine. Kind of like how forgot what they're called, delves. How delves work in ESO are fine, but dungeons, actual dungeons, elite mobs, bosses, and all that stuff. I think that should be instance based, 100%. Yeah.
Game. They're on it all day.
It's not even about PvP griefers. It's just literally griefing regardless. Just being the first to tag, having too many people in every spot, just preventing you from being able to go there. That's my biggest problem with like actual dungeons that are like good being controlled by other players. I feel like dungeons where that's not like a one and done, that's like a grinding spot, should not be overall open world. We had it in other games. T4C had it too. You go to a spot for like massive XP farming, which by the way, I don't think this game is aiming for that, but maybe. But like you go to a spot for XP grinding, and it's like there's someone there, and like fuck, okay, go to a different spot, there's someone there, and it's like there's like 10 people online, but there's only 3 spots, right? So it's like you're gonna have to wait for someone of them to leave, or for them to kill you, or you for you to kill them, or for them to die.
And all night, and they live to make other people quit the game. The more miserable you are, the happier they are. It is
unless they group up, but yeah, the more miserable you are, yes,
correlation for them. You
I
might
agree.
eventually choose to duke it out, or you might choose to waste their time until
or join them.
You have to sign off for the night, feeling good that they got nothing done, but also knowing you didn't have fun. You just wasted the 3 hours you had to play stalemating with one of the sweatiest PvP guilds in the game. They will do this until you leave the dungeon, and they will keep doing it until you decide not to come back. So you'll go to the second most interesting spot in the game to level with your friends, and guess what? The second sweatiest PvP guild will be locking that down, or the best PvP guild will get bored of their area because no one's going there anymore, and they'll come knocking on your door again, looking for people to grief, hoping to get a quick, uneven exchange where they can kill you while you're mid-pull or outnumbered yet again. And I'm not making this up out of thin air.
Oh, no, this totally happens, yeah. There were people I hated that I knew where they were farming, and I went there on purpose just to grief them. Yeah, 100%. This always happens, and I had that done to me many times as well. It's a fun possibility, but it ruins the game 100%.
These are not hypothetical situations. This is exactly what happens. Lineage 2 had the exact same open world design. It had the exact same flagging PvP system to a T. There is nothing different in the design of the PvP in AOC from Lineage 2 from 20 years ago that is going to stop this from happening. The system is inherently flawed. It rewards griefing. It rewards being an asshole. It promotes a style of play that ensures that only one group is allowed to have fun at a time. Now, I said earlier, you'd be lucky if the sweatiest PvP guild on the server was the one locking the dungeon down. And you're probably wondering, why would I be lucky if it's the sweatiest PvP guild on the server? My sweet summer lamb, ripe for the slaughter.
You can have like some small group griefers, like you don't even need to have guilds. If it's a guild, it's easy because you can plug the whole guild for like the server to attack. But if it's just a small group of randoms, that's a pain in the ass.
So much to learn about purple and red flagging systems in an open world. The other option is it's the RMT guild locking it down. The people, often from other countries, who turn playing this game into a job where they sell their drops and their gold for real money on third-party websites. They always have the best gear, they always bot, and they're always reinforced by more bots. They are usually the only ones capable of keeping even the sweatiest PvP guilds out of an area. They will employ all of the dirtiest tricks in the book, including
that's where he went. That's where he went.
They will also have new tricks. They will have characters that they bought up to high levels specifically for going red on your group if you don't go away. They will run them into the dungeon and log them out there. Anytime you go into that dungeon to group up and they can't down you by griefing you, they log in their perma red character and kill your healer. Usually quite effectively because this character is decked out. If you do kill it and it does drop some of its gear, they'll pick it up instantly, probably via some bot software that does so faster than any human could ever have a chance.
But as far as I know, you can't drop gear unless you're flagged for PvP though.
To compete against. Yes, this also actually happened. Again, I don't have to make this up. I lived it. And in the off chance you do get a piece of gear, it doesn't matter. They have literally unlimited funds to replace it 10 times over because the game is their job. They are literally selling their excess for real money. The more they keep you down, the more money they make by selling to that sweaty, do anything to win PvP guild on the server. And before you tell me that AOC will be the first MMO in history to not have any bots, please spare yourself the embarrassment. It will. Every MMO has bots. It is, however, possible that AOC does a better job than AAA companies like.
Absolutely, I'm so mad. I don't care who trolls this post because I literally cannot be more mad. NVIDIA capture bots in the game and nothing is done about them. A guy's literally sitting in BGs casting spells and moving to avoid AFK. I have filmed it, reported him, untouched. I want to cancel my sub. It's so insanely frustrating. What is the point of trying if people can cheat their way through? Why bother? Why don't I just cheat? What's the point of the game anymore? Can't even win a BG because half of the people are bots. Blizz, please respond or I am canceling all of my accounts. I cannot take it anymore.
Blizzard and NCSoft at detecting and eliminating
Divorce
these
Dad's
bots.
Alliance.
But even if we achieve this unobtainable bot-free world that you so desire, all of the problems I mentioned about griefing are still there. The flagging system AOC is proposing is not going to work. Lineage 2 was an amazing game in its time, but the genre has evolved. EverQuest, which came out just a few years before, was also an amazing game in its time. Almost no one would play EverQuest now, and almost no one will endure this type of griefing in 2022 and beyond. They'll just quit. You will quit. I repeat, you will quit. AOC will be massive at launch, and we will all watch its player base deteriorate.
regardless, it will always deteriorate. Even if the game is perfect, the hype will never live up to the game release. Like within a month or two, you're gonna lose at least 30% of your player base, probably like 20 to 30%. Usually, I think is the norm.
It will then have a fraction of the income that it needs to put out epic size expansions on par with major MMOs today.
Maybe or maybe not, because it's still self-funded, so
Flagging system doesn't work as well as it needs to. It doesn't protect the masses, and it rewards foul play. It creates a toxic culture in the game where the most unpleasant types of personalities survive and thrive. But there are a small percentage of players who enjoy this. Don't worry, I have a solution for you too that will make you sweaty hardcore PvPers happy. My goal here isn't to have the devs create a game that you can enjoy. I am not trying to take away your PvP experience. I am trying to ensure that AOC is popular enough to get massive expansions that keep the game alive and thriving for both the PvE and the PvP players. Make no mistake, if this game is made for the super small subset of MMO players that enjoy this type of content, it will not get exciting expansions on the scale of other MMOs today. Right now,
what scale are we talking about? I'll take ESO expansions over WoW expansions almost any day of the week.
This is being made for PvP Andes who are already a small subset of the already niche community that is the MMO player base. And it's not even made for all PvPers. It's made for the ones who want PvP all the time with no way to turn it off. A microscopic portion of the already tiny MMO community. There aren't enough of you. I'm sorry. Without the unwashed
Albion, World of Warcraft, Black Desert Online. Is Albion, Black Desert Online the PvPers?
masses that are the PvE gigachads, Ashes will not receive the continued subscription numbers to put out impressive expansions. Right now, AOC is making money hand over fist from those unwashed masses that you PvP players so despise. They are buying this game thinking it's going to be their next World of Warcraft, not realizing it's an always-on PvP grief fest in the making. Oh, you think Asmin or any big streamer is going to enjoy this game? Yeah, right. Those PvP guilds will make sure that every player that streams this game is miserable. They will show up
100%.
and wipe your group any and every time they please. Streamers will be forced to leave. PvEers will be forced to leave. So please consider you and I on the same team, my PvP brethren. I am just from the future. I have already played this game. I have already seen how this PvP system plays out. I am the lucky ghost of AOC past. But let's continue. The next type of griefing is less important, so I'll keep it brief, but it's probably something that should ideally be addressed. And I'm bringing it up in hopes that we as a community can have a constructive conversation about something that can easily erode the enjoyment of a game like this. That is an open world game where anyone can walk into your dungeon while you're doing it. Anyone can walk into your raid while you're doing it.
Yeah, see, I don't like that. I feel like dungeons where loot is and raids where loot is should be instanced. There's no way you're fighting a fucking raid boss. World boss is different. World boss is fine. But an actual raid, no fucking way should other people be able to get into the raid that you're doing. Yeah, obviously not.
There's another type of griefing known as training, or rather grabbing a ton of mobs from other parts of the dungeon and then dragging them over to your group and dropping them on you, resulting in your death.
That depends on like how far mobs follow you, but yeah.
Group was capable of handling the 5 to 10 mobs that they had pulled, but the 20 to 30 mobs that another player just drug over your group is another story. You're going to wipe if the developers don't protect you from this. This is a way that groups grief each other even without having to go purple, circumventing the flag.
He spawned on Unreal 5 image. Nice.
System entirely. This does not add any positive experiences to the game. It's just another way of rewarding foul play and allowing it to ruin the fun for an entire group of people. My question to you is, what could the developers do to prevent this? What kind of aggro rules could they use to ensure that you can't simply abuse bad AI in this way? How do you prevent one player from wiping any group they want by simply dragging a dungeon's worth of mobs onto them? You can't just make super short leashes, because then everyone just skips the dungeon and runs to the end, right? So what can the developers do?
Bigger rooms with less mobs. Each room would have 5 mobs or whatever, so you're supposed to pull instead of 20, and you can't pull from room to room, right? Like something like that you can do. But honestly, like the delves and stuff, it's fine. Again, the problem is not even that. The problem is like making actual dungeons into an open world, and actual raids into an open world. I don't think that's a good idea overall, but yeah.
do. And also, what can they do to prevent people from simply griefing you until you leave the cool new dungeon node that was unlocked? Ashes of Creation is going to have two types of PvP. One is the PvP mentioned here already. The no rules barred open world exchanges between groups of all sizes. Typically, these will not be even matches. The engaging group will make sure they have more players than the group they engage with. They will make sure they have better gear. They will make sure they are higher level, and they will probably make sure that the group they are engaging with is mid-combat with some NPC enemies. The other type of PvP is the more organized and scheduled castle sieges, where guilds sign up to help other guilds defend or attack a castle. This massive scale organized PvP tends to be one that many more players enjoy. It's scheduled, it's all out, and everyone is there to PvP, and there's a lot on the line. Economically, the winning side makes a ton of money, and so there's a lot of incentive to successfully defend or attack these castles.
Okay.
Again, we know this because it's straight from Lineage 2. So I'm gonna propose a solution where everyone wins, where the PvPers get what the PvPers want, and the PvEers get what the PvEers want, one of which is to drastically improve their planned flagging system to prevent people from simply
improve the flagging
all of its
100%,
punishments by griefing people until they die.
Perhaps there should be a separate meter that fills up when you attack a white or non-combatant player. This would limit the number of times you could grief an individual that wasn't interested in fighting back. The meter would eventually fill up all the way and turn the player corrupt if they harassed a non-combatant player too many times in a defined period of time. This would at least prevent a player from infinitely harassing a player or group who wasn't interested in PvP. It would also limit the number of people's days one player could negatively impact through griefing. I think something like this alone would greatly reduce the amount of ill-intentioned griefing on the server and greatly improve the experience of the average player.
This doesn't solve the problem of like throwing mobs onto a player though.
Any portion of this meter that is filled by attacking a non-combatant player would be reset if that player decided to attack back. This way, we're not preventing the number of meaningful PvP engagements a player can have, just the number of times a player can grief another player.
This still wouldn't protect the average unwashed masses that are the PvE MMO players, but it would at least be a step in the right direction to mitigating some of the griefing that will inevitably cause all of them to leave. And make no mistake, they will leave, and so will their subscription. And if you didn't know, PvE players prop up massive MMOs. PvE players keep massive MMOs afloat, period. And more realistically, this next thing is probably the best solution.
The vast majority.
Simple. It's effective. It's not reinventing any wheels, and there really aren't any downsides. Perhaps the developers should just consider two types of servers: AOC PvE servers and AOC PvP servers. Let the PvPers that have been furiously listening to this YouTube video with Steam.
See, the thing is, I like this idea, but only if the PvP servers have increased rates of everything. Ah, man, what a stretch. Okay, so what I mean by this is the PvP servers, treat them like a survival game, right? But instead of like starting from zero, which, you know, because it's still an MMORPG, you don't have to start from zero, but you level up faster to compensate. Oh my god, man. Okay, so take World of Warcraft War Mode for example. Just hype it up by like times 5, you know. World of Warcraft, I think it's like 10 or 15% more XP if you're in War Mode or some shit like that, right? Make it 100, make it 200, make it 500%. Well, maybe 500 is a bit much. Make it substantially more XP. Make it a higher chance to for gear to drop, because in PvP mode, you will be dropping your gear on death, right? So make gear a bit easier to get, right? Shit like that. Then I agree. But having just pure PvP, the same specs as the PvE, like that map, like that server would be dead and would just be more expensive to upkeep than it is to have.
Coming out of their ears at the mere thought of turning this game into some kind of disgusting Care Bear MMO. Let them keep their PvP-centric AOC game just the way it's been designed, but also create a version of this game that will appeal to far, far more players. A version of this game where you can't attack a player unless they've opted into PvP. The PvE servers would still have plenty of PvP content. PvE servers would still have sieges, wars, caravans, dueling, etc. Tons of opt-in PvP. But you would not be able to as easily grief other players into quitting the game entirely. You wouldn't be.
This still doesn't solve the problem of how he described in dungeons. What you can do is grab other mobs and put them onto the group that is fighting, right? It still doesn't describe it. Still doesn't stop people from holding up spawn points. So you have a bigger group holding up a spawn point. Like, what you gonna do? You can't even fight them for it though. So this doesn't really solve anything. So his suggestion doesn't mean anything. I'm just thinking the only real way to solve this, and first of all, I think he only wants one major server, but the only way to really solve this is make PvP something you do out of necessity, not something that you do out of fun. And if you do it out of fun, massive fucking punishments, like stat decreases, damage decreases, increased damage taken, drop loot on death, all that stuff. Whereas if you're a white player, none of that. No dropping loot on death, no disadvantages, nothing. If you are willing to kill someone else, have a gauge, when that gauge fills up enough, you are fucked. And you're gonna have to do some really annoying, tedious fucking stuff to get that gauge off. Not just spend time somewhere and just like it will go off. No. You have to do like some good deeds and shit like that in order for that gauge to go down. Make it extremely hard to get rid of the red flag, of like the PvP flag, and make it extremely unrewarding to be a PvP. So the only time you would PvP in the real world is out of necessity. Like, for example, this group has been here farming the same fucking mobs, or these bots have been here farming the same fucking mobs over and over. I want this spot. Me and my buddies want this spot. Fuck these guys. We're killing them. Enough is enough. And we're taking over this spot. Now, that means you're not red players yet because you didn't grief. You just PvP'd. You just did a bit of that. You're just like, you're purplish, right? Then, when these guys come back, if they attack you first, you retaliate. You defend yourself. That is not gonna flag you. But if they come back and you attack them first, then you're fucked, right? And yeah, etc., etc. Massive. The only way to stop griefing is have extremely massive disadvantages to griefing compared to not griefing. That's
be able to ruin other people's dungeon experiences. You wouldn't be able to do the same during raids. Or maybe you do something completely different and you have specific areas that are PvP on and areas that are PvP off.
That's
on
also
one
fine.
Server. Some nodes are PvP, some nodes are PvE. Some dungeons
This is
allow
also
it, some
fine,
don't.
but
the
it still
fact is-
doesn't solve the problem of people grabbing more mobs and throwing them onto your group. It still doesn't solve that problem.
If you don't give the PvE players that have no interest in griefing other people into quitting and have no interest in being the player that is griefed until they quit, if you don't give these players a way to play the game, or if you don't come up with a better plan to protect them from the bad apples, you're gonna watch as griefers destroy your player numbers. You're gonna watch as the launch is marred with negative headlines and a mass exodus from the game. Players complaining about
It's gonna
dying
happen
and dropping their
regardless.
loot. Players complaining about being camped. Players complaining about not being able to go
I
solo.
still, like, does Ashes drop, like, do you drop your loot upon death in Ashes of Creation? I don't think, like, that's a thing. I thought it was only if you're flagged for PvP. Like,
the new cool
flag
areas
for,
you
like,
added, or group
murderer,
randomly unlock
basically.
nodes because they just get griefed when they go to these places anyway. I know this video probably angered a lot of you, but remember, I'm trying to help AOC, not kill AOC. I'm here to stop the griefing. I'm not here to stop the PvP. There's a massive difference there, and I hope that's what you focus on. I selfishly want this game to succeed so that I can get lost in it for months and for years. I want it to do well so that I can make content about it for months and for years.
Yeah, of
but
course.
I am also a realist. I know that sucking in the copium and pretending that a PvP-centric MMO is going to be just fine and do well is a lie. And I know what's happened to every PvP MMO ever released. Their expansions are small, their lives are short, and their declines often very rapid. And I don't want to see that happen to AOC. There needs to
This
be
should have been released after the PvP newsletter.
a version of this game that appeals to and maintains the
Live
attention
letter,
of the
whatever.
PvE player. If not, then I guess there's always that Riot MMO, right boys? Suck down that copium. Sound off in the comments below. I really hope you try to come up with solutions instead of attacks. It doesn't matter how much you hate PvE Care Bears or sweaty PvPers, but if you type out a comment with a proposed solution, you could be the person that saves AOC. So go and try, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get a version of this game that PvPers and PvEers alike can enjoy. The purpose of this video is to start a discussion around Ashes of Creation's Achilles heel, the obvious problem and the obvious hill that it's going to have to climb upon its release. And if we talk about it now while it's in its
We have an important comment reply. Much of the Ashes corruption system has taken into account these concerns. In my experience with similar flagging systems, such as that of Lineage 2, there were very apparent flaws in implementation. Some of the adjustments that have been made for Ash's approach to open world flagging system is as follows. Abilities with CC effects do not apply to non-combatants. The target of a CC ability must be flagged in order to suffer the CC effects. The target of a CC ability must be flagged. Okay. This prevents players from opening attacks that stun players during a pull, for example. Corruption gain also takes into account the level disparity between the player killed and the corrupted. The greater the disparity, the higher the corruption occurred. Corruption gain also takes into account level disparity between. Okay, so yeah, so the higher your level compared to the one you're killing, the more corruption you get, basically. PK alts would be highly ineffective since acquiring corruption will apply dampening effect on skill damage for PvP the higher your corruption score becomes. Dampening effect on skill damage for PvP the higher, yep. Working corruption off through XP grinding also takes significantly longer than L2, and during that time we've created a bounty system that reveals corrupt players' locations on the map. So they can't just grind XP once they're corrupted because people come hunting them. It's true that Ashes is a PvX game, and that means it won't be for everyone, and that's okay. Testing will further refine our approach for corruption, but as a system, it is core to introducing risk versus reward in Ashes while disincentivizing griefing. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM on Discord or Twitter. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it should probably be harsher, but they are aware of this. I played 10 years actively, another 5 on and off, L2, and 10 years, wow. People don't know what they are missing with a truly open world gameplay and not just linear progression in a chat room based game like WoW. Me and all my friends still tell stories from L2 back from 2004 2005. It doesn't matter, I can still tell you stories about my time playing T4C, and that was like a single, well, it was MMO, but it was pretty much single player. And because there's no one on. And we remember everything to a T. On the other hand, none of my friends discuss our WoW experience once we are past them. We don't talk about our arena experiences. We don't talk about our raid clears or anything. It all seems so forgettable. That's not the reason. But when it comes to L2, I have friends that have played it no more than a couple of months, and they will still talk about it. And it was all because of the true open world system. No, it's not. And unregulated gameplay that made social interactions a must and created unique situations. Okay, this guy is, I don't know, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Good video, Lucky, but I've been saying this for like forever. You cannot have a point control system that does not turn into a huge PvP gangfest full of toxic players. This type of environment or vibe will push most players away. For your information, I too started MMOs in Lineage 2. I played the Korean beta, the Thai beta, like Thailand, I guess. And the US Open beta. I was on the BART server in the Guild Blue. Dude, too much information. There was a lot of PvP issues in Lineage 2. There were minor compared to how they would play out today. Today's world full of uneducated maladjusted youth, the environment will devolve into a toxic sludge fest where only the worst of the worst survive. Should be something like Arcade, with areas having eternal peace mode. Old school RuneScape wilderness vibe. Make a black zone with PvP. The deeper in you go, the higher the level differences you're allowed to fight. Better dungeons in this zone, but they can be contested. Easier ones in lower level wild. Harder dungeons and maybe good field bosses in deeper wild. Some of my fondest memories playing open world PvP MMOs were spent outsmarting griefers and getting rid of them. And wasting your time. Sure. Fighting for your leveling spot and keeping others out is part of PvP mechanics and makes the game real. But again, the problem is, yes, but you had the time back then. This is what people don't understand. You had the time to do this back then. You don't mind, back then, you don't mind logging onto a game, outsmarting them for like 3 hours, whatever, and then logging on feeling fulfilled. If you're a grown-ass man playing an MMO and you have a job and shit like that, and you have a goal, you log in, I want to accomplish this. You cannot do that with griefers. It's like, well, I wanted to go and do like 3 mythic pluses, but instead I was just outsmarting griefers for 3 hours to even be able to get into the dungeon. Bro. Are you fucking kidding me? You know, that's not what the game is about. It's not what people want games to be about. And it's literally people who have too much time on their hands, namely kids usually, griefing people who don't have a lot of time, you know?
It's alpha, early alpha, long before it's released. It has a much better chance of making the adjustments needed to appeal to a broader player base and to having better, more filled out expansions as the game goes on. All I want for the game is to have its best chance of maintaining its player base, because I love what I've seen so far. I love the world that it's in, and I can't wait to get lost in it. I am not trying to change this into a Care Bear PvE game, and that's why I think maybe one of the
I love
best
that he has to keep saying it, because he didn't mention PvE at all here. Like it didn't even say remove PvP at all. But yeah,
is to leave the game as it was designed for the PvPers that want that hardcore PvP experience always on, and maybe something else.
Yeah,
maybe
this wasn't 9 days ago, was it?
PvEers. And I know there's going to be a lot of comments from PvPers saying just get good or just don't play the game, and that's fine. That's what a lot of people will choose to do. If
not play the game and then the game dies.
As it's currently designed, they just won't play it.
Yeah.
A massive shout out to my YouTube.
That's the biggest thing, right? It's like, oh well, just don't play. Then no, but that's not a solution. Same as like when the Bella video, it's like, well, if someone keeps the ninja looting, you just don't play the game. That's how people don't end up not playing your fucking game, though. That's not a good solution for the game. So, well, if you don't like it, just quit. Okay, and then what? You don't have anyone to play with. You will leave because you don't have anyone to grief, and the developers just gonna have to find a new game to develop because the game that they worked on turned to shitfest. Yeah, anyways, that's the video. Single biggest problem Ashes creation phase. I would say it's a pretty big problem overall. Hopefully Steven is aware. I still don't like that dungeons and raids are open world. I'm assuming he only means the node dungeons and node raid, but there will be dungeons and raids that's just like that, those ones you can do in a closed environment. I hope so. But yeah, anyways, we'll see. It's still in alpha. We don't know anything too important right now. We don't know the intricacies. We don't know anything of how and where and why and who and whose and whatever other question words there are. We don't know anything that can answer all of our questions right now. But yeah, thank you for watching. That's the video, and give Lucky Ghost a like and sub. Oh, I'm subbed. Shame on me. Anyways, peace out.